Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. We're at this week's episode of the Market Monday. So this week I'm not really going to pick many specs that I am looking at. In fact, a lot of people have asked that I start giving my opinions on what cards to speculate into that week. I know I used to do that. If you go back to some of the older episodes, that actually was entirely what the episode was about. So I'm going to try to get back into the swing of things. One of the reasons why is I've been super busy between the YouTube channel and the store and trying to get everything. We have purchased just an insane amount of cards, and you can ask Zach, we've been sorting non-stop for the past, I would say, month, trying to get our store basically all nice and tidy before we make the transition to really becoming a player kind of in the online scene. So that's, I guess, the good news for the upcoming thing about the Rogue Deck Builder is I'm really going to start to be serious about the brand, and we're going to look into actually having our own little online sales beyond just TCG Player and eBay. So we've been very busy with that, and I haven't really had the time to really look at some of the market swings and look at cards that I would speculate into. And actually, we were looking at that on Sunday or Saturday night. We were looking at some cards that I completely missed the boat on, but that's also going to show me kind of the theme of where I think the direction of Magic is going in. And I've talked about this in the past, but I really think this is the future of speculation, and I'm going to try to tell you the reasons why. First of all, the big reason that I think that we have to change the way that we invest in Magic the Gathering is there's too many players in the game. Now, a lot of you may know Alpha Investments channel, very good channel, love his entertainment value, but he and I disagree pretty much on investment as far as Magic the Gathering is concerned. I think because we look at it in two different angles. I usually look at it from a player's standpoint. I was not a store first. I've always been this player, and not only a player, I've always been this net down player. What I mean by that is Magic cost me a ton of money. If you are a brewer like myself and a competitive player, which I used to be when I was chasing the Pro Tours and going to Grand Prix and things like that, Magic is something that costs a ton of money. So you have to really be on. You can't play the long game. You can't say, okay, I'm gonna invest in a booster box and wait for 5 years till it goes up and then sell it. A lot of my wins, I guess, in the Magic finance or just speculation were on those quick flips, like the Hell Riders and the Stony Silences, and now the Rest in Peace that I had a ton of investment in. The Gataxian Probes, that was a really good one that I picked up on what I like to call the penny stocks. And they are pretty easy to actually even flip on TCG Player and eBay. And even better, the way that I really was able to make a killing was just at Grand Prix. Sold out of Thoughtseizes at Grand Prix at $18 a piece when everyone told me I was an idiot for doing so because they're a modern stable. They're just going to keep going up until they're back up to 50. I sold out of Polluted Deltas at that same Grand Prix around, I think, between 17 and 21. Yes, I was selling them at $21 to certain vendors. Actually was trading them for KMC sleeves because KMC sleeves were basically cash when you have a small local game store. So Polluted Deltas, yeah, I was trading those for store credit to a bunch of stores for an already deflated value of KMCs, because if you don't know what at Grand Prix, on day number 3, a lot of these vendors actually have to fly home, and so they do not want to ship their stock back. They do not want to, especially like sleeves and other bulky items, they'd have to take a net loss there by just having to ship them back to their location. So it's pretty easy to haggle and bargain with. I remember one vendor chased me out because I was trying to trying to get him down $1 on Dragon Shields. But anyway, a whole story for another day. So I like to sell a lot of these what we call staples a lot more aggressive than other people, and I really think that because, as I talked about last week, the ship has sailed for those type of investments. We are not going to see the huge price increase of like Scalding Tarn and other Fetchlands like we did for Zendikar, because Modern did not exist back then. There was no Modern format when we saw that huge price increase from the Scalding Tarn and the Arid Mesas and all those type of cards and all these other Modern base cards. They were seeing zero play in Legacy. Well, those cards were seeing play in Legacy, but in a zero, like very few play in these other formats into 4-ofs in every deck in Modern. Now, I'm going to once again focus on Fetchlands. As Rudy likes to call on his channel, it's all about the fetch. And I say, yeah, it's all about getting out of the fetch and staying away, as far away from the fetch as possible, at least for another 4 or 5 months. It does look like they might have stabilized, but again, we're going to talk about the culture of investments and just the culture of how Magic has went from people in the market or in the speculation area is a lot higher than it was when I got into it. There was basically very few people that even cared about investing in Magic the Gathering beyond just investing in like booster boxes and that. And if you haven't went and checked out Rudy's video, I'll put it in the link in the description below, where he talks about investing in Khans of Tarkir boxes. And there's a few things that I absolutely agree with that video. He talks about how booster boxes are something that are great investments because the supply will always go down and the demand will always either stay pretty steady or always go up because people are absolutely impulsive. And every day a Khans of Tarkir there will be less Khans of Tarkir booster packs in the system. We continue to sell them at my store. We sell rotated sets for $5 a piece of any of the rotated because we're not going to reorder them. And so we have every day I would say we sell some Khans, and I think that other stores are the exact same. Or people that have said, "Oh, I'm going to hold on to this booster box of Khans of Tarkir." They get impulsive and then open it. Or every day somewhere in the universe, someone is going to open up a Khans of Tarkir just to draft. So little by little, the supply will dwindle and the demand for the boxes will increase when people want to actually open that product. So I do agree with Rudy there that sealed product is probably the safest and best investment if you're looking for the long game, if you're looking for 4, 5, 6 years. But if you look at recent trends, they are not holding true. Besides Khans of Tarkir, which I do have a little bit of a beef with what Rudy was quoting, because we went and checked his facts after he stated that he was selling booster boxes for $120 on eBay. You can get them from Cool Stuff Inc. right now for $89. You can get them from other vendors. That's with shipping. You can get them from other vendors for under the $100 mark. And so the supply of Khans of Tarkir booster boxes still seems to be very, 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 very easy. We found a box for $73, a bunch for $85 on eBay. And it just didn't really hold up with the prices of selling for $120. So I think that you have a long time still to invest in Khans of Tarkir. And what I really want to talk about specifically about Khans of Tarkir is we already saw this with Theros and Return to Ravnica. This exact same verbatim happened during those two sets. I remember when Theros was a set that when Wizards announced they were going to quit printing, that Theros went on their, it's no longer being printed, and the boxes went up to $105, $110. And it was hard to find Theros. I'm speaking from a vendor, a local game store point of view. I couldn't go to my vendors and get a Theros for anywhere near the other boxes. Like Born of the Gods, Journey Nyx, Constellar, all the ones that were still in what we call in print or recently had been out of print. Theros was like this more expensive by $5, $10, $15. Now, most of the distributors have knocked Theros back down to it's usually like 87, 84 was what you get boxes from vendors, and Theros is back down to that. And the exact same thing happened with Return to Ravnica. Return to Ravnica, the vendors the distributors all spiked them up to the $90, $95, $100, $110, and it was hard for even game stores to get those Return to Ravnica boxes for cheap. And now they've come back down to the $90. And Cool Stuff Inc., again, one of my huge sponsors to my channel, they are known for selling sealed product for insanely cheap. All of those boxes, cons included, are still under $100. You can still find Return to Ravnica. You can still find Khans of Tarkir. You can still find Theros, not to mention all the other sets in between for like $5 to $10 less than those type of sets. You can still get them from Cool Stuff, and they have a huge stock of those, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So I think it's just been this kind of this shift from Return to Ravnica on. The booster boxes aren't nearly the investment they used to be. And you used to see that 5-10% return per year on those type of box. But I'm going to stick behind what I said with last week, that the supply of these products is so much higher than these previous sets that it makes it for a murky little investment. It's not just that safe investment. We don't know what's going to happen to Magic the Gathering. They continue to do these massive printings of multiple sets. Mind you, this was a time like Zendikar, Innistrad was a time that they didn't release as much product as they do now. We have a Commander set that comes out every year. We now have an Eternal Masters or a Modern Masters that comes out every year. We now have these sets, the standard sets that are rotating quicker, meaning that they're going to continue to, well, I think the printing is the same with Origins with the 2 blocks per set rather than 3 blocks, but they're expecting sales to go up with the standard rotation, which just means more sealed product being bought, which means probably less people caring about older products. So that is what the major reason that I don't really like to invest in sealed product, because the money moves very slowly, and I think there's just better ways to invest safely. Probably even so. I think there's some targets that you can target that. What I like to target for safe investments is casual cards with specific names. What I mean by that is set specific or lore specific names have a harder time being reprinted than cards that do not have a lore or set specific name attached to them or ability. And we'll look at those in a second. I'll try to show you some of the increases from the past sets that have outperformed sealed product by far. So there's just that. So I love Rudy to death. I think that he has an awesome channel, but I think that we are both kind of on a different page, and it's just probably because we have a different perspective, mainly being a vendor on Rudy's side and mainly me being a high-end competitive player on the other side. So we're kind of in the market in different ways. I'm seeing the floor market. I'm actually out there grinding the trades with a lot of people, and he's seeing the more of the vendor eBay market. And I think that makes two great perspectives. So if you're not subscribed to Alpha Investments, I highly suggest you go over there and subscribe to it. He has a very entertaining channel. He's not afraid to say what he wants, what he means, and mean what he says. And so I highly respect Rudy, even though we do disagree on this issue and many other issues pretty vehemently. So lastly, with the Fetchlands, why I avoid Fetchlands like crazy, let's just look at those. I had a whole plan here, and now it's going to go out the window because I am that type of person that gets off on tangents and basically just wings everything. I do not have a script. And so let's just go over here. We're gonna check out these Fetchlands from the Cons of Tarkir. Now, a lot of you ask what website I use. This is MTG Goldfish, best website in the entire world as far as prices are concerned. Big shout out to MTG Goldfish, not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form, but they have made my life so much easier since the inception of MTG Goldfish, because it's exactly what you want. Just pure data, very easy to navigate, and we're going to talk about why that's important to a website when I get to my very ending rant for this video that will actually have another video that will go a companion piece video to that video. So let's just go over to we're into modern now, and we're looking, there's the Fetchlands for Comstock here. They're kind of flatlined right now, which is a good sign for Fetchlands. But we're going to come over here to the good old Zendikar. Zendikar. Where are you? So, and I'm going to show you kind of what happened to the cards at this particular point. So here's Misty Rainforest. So let's just look at the history, the data for Misty Rainforest. So I got into Fetchlands right here when they announced Modern. I think it was somewhere in Innistrad. I actually got into these Fetchlands, like the Zendikar Fetchlands, just because I was a long-term speculator on legacy cards. Made a killing off Dark Confidence way back in the day. I was trading like every card in the world for Dark Confidence when Dark Confidence was not seeing standard play, because it was seeing legacy play. And I did the same thing for these Zendikar Fetchlands right here before Modern was announced. After rotation, I was trading everything for them because I was just going to sit on them for 3-4 years and then make a killing when legacy. And I think legacy would have still been a very, very popular format, like way more popular than it would be today if Modern didn't exist. It was the only other way to play old cards. Commander hadn't really taken off at this point, and so I was trying to invest in legacy cards. So that was the reason I hit gold when I invested in Misty Rainforests, because around here they announced Modern, and they just spiked in value. They doubled in value. This was actually a Star City buyout right here. They went on the internet and bought out every copy of the Zendikar Fetchlands for under $15 and spiked the price up to 40 or 35. Yeah, 35 for Misty Rainforests, and Scalding Tarn, and I believe 20 for the other Fetchlands. And then Modern just got crazy popular here. Popular, until it just got out of control. This is the height of Modern, when they hit $70 for Misty Rainforest. And then the Modern season rotated into Standard, and then something happened right here at M15-ish that caused a price crash. I think this was just a price right here to here, if you guys can see my little pointer, was just these little spikes happen and then it stabilizes. This is just the price adjusting to where the value really should have been. So the actual value, the demand for Misty Rainforests was about $60. Just ignore this $90. This was just vendors. This is just, there's always this little window when there's a buyout of where the price needs to adjust back to normal. So this peak shouldn't happen, and then you need to find the next point where it actually does. This plateau should be. So the demand for Misty Rainforest were $70, I would say. $70 to $65 was the true demand of Misty Rainforest at this time. And then, so what happened here? What happened for this price decrease? Did Modern go down in popularity? Absolutely not, because we can check out other Modern cards and they did not follow this trajectory. They did not follow this huge plateau right here. So, interesting. What happened at Khans of Tarkir? Well, I'll tell you what happened. We had the Onslaught Fetchlands reprinted in Khans of Tarkir. That is why I am not touching Fetchlands. That's the biggest reason I am not touching Fetchlands, because I think that Zendikar Fetchlands are ripe for a reprint, either in Modern Masters 3, which we don't even know if it exists or not, or in a upcoming set, like a set that, like, I don't think Kaladesh or the Revolt. I think the set after them will probably have the Zendikar Fetchlands in them. So here we can kind of base upon what this will do to a price of a card. Now the thing about Fetchlands is they compete with each other. If you go to a tournament right now and you play against Burn, I bet you'll often see people playing Bloodstained Mire, and we're not talking about Mardu Burn. Let's just talk about the regular Naya Burn. You're going to see the Fetchlands of choice be Bloodstained Mire and Wooded Foothills, not Arid Mesa. And Arid Mesa would be better for that deck, except you don't need to go get a basic Plains really ever, or even a Stomping or a Temple Garden in the deck. And so they're basically relying that any one of Bloodstained Mires or Wooded Foothills can get their mountain of choice. And so they don't need Arid Mesas. And so it killed the price of Arid Mesas, because no longer did you need 4 Arid Mesas in a burn deck. You can just go with the cheap cheap Bloodstained Mires and the cheap Wooded Foothills. Now, so it's just, you basically are spoiled in Modern right now. You don't need, besides 2-color decks, and that's why I think Scalding Tarn is worth more than the rest of them, is because Blue-Red has just a ton of regular 2-color decks that actually don't care to go get a Shockland. They're perfectly happy with just getting just a basic island and saving themselves 2 damage. Because if they've already fixed with 1 Scalding Tarns, or they had one come into play tapped, they're okay with just after that. They just need the Cryptic Command mana, so they just go get a basic island, and they have all the red they need. And so right now, I think a lot of people, myself included, and everyone at my local game store that started after Zendikar, is using these Khans of Tarkir lands just because no one wanted to put money into Zendikar. So I think that the looming reprint of Zendikar Fetchlands are going to keep the price of Khans of Tarkir lands at a really weird position to invest in them, because they're going to lose this, 20-25% value if we get the Zendikar Fetchlands, because now people can start throwing Arid Mesas and a one of Plains in Burn, or just, I guess Burn's a bad example, but I use a Martyr Proc deck, and the card that I use of choice, since I don't have the Marsh Flats, is the green-white, and the white-blue, the Flooded Strand, and I can't think, Windswept Heaths is what I used for my Fetchlands to get my Godless Shrine, not the Marsh Flats. And so, same thing too, say that these are more expensive, and every reprint adds to just the supply that's out there. Khans of Tarkir was at the height of Magic. We've leveled off since Khans of Tarkir, and there is still just tons of fetches out there. I think the vast majority of Fetchlands are actually in the pockets of the speculators, not out in the market. And eventually, like vendors, if a card becomes so stale, they get rid of them, and they all start competing to get rid of them, and it causes this chain reaction of a sell-off. And so I really think that if we're stabilized right now with Khans of Tarkir, and the vast majority of the Khans of Tarkir cards are in the hands of speculators, something has to give if they're not going to be able to increase at least 25%, 50%, 100% in the next 2 years, which I don't think is going to happen because of the ever-looming threat of a reprint of the Zendikar Fetchlands. So that I hope that gives you enough information of why I think that the Fetchlands are kind of a pretty meh investment. Let's just look at another Fetchland really quickly here. To see if they actually are stabilized. So Polluted Delta is the one I like to, because it's the most popular, and we're starting to see this little bit of an uptick. So here's the good news. This is where I like to invest, for example. And one of the things that Rudy said, what he kind of rebuted my video was, well, in 5 years, this is going to look like a genius investment. If you bought it at 22 bucks and in 5 years they're 30 bucks, that's a great investment, right? Kind of. But you're kind of cheating yourself if you think that that was a great investment when there was a better point to get into, which was the point of all of my videos back during this era, or when I got out of Polluted Deltas it was like right here at 21 at one of the Grand Prix I went to. So anywho, this was the time that you should have got into. That already, if you go 16 to 22, that's a phenomenal increase. You've already, that was the time to get into. I think that Polluted Delta is, if I will start to see a little more of an uptick in trend, that's when I'll start to invest in the Fetchlands. That's also where I've started to invest in the Shocklands, because it does seem to be that the Shocklands are now going to start going up rather than going down. And it was so funny, after the people were investing in Shocklands, especially like held fountains at like 14 bucks when at the height of their standards, saying I'm just going to put all of my stock into Shocklands because it's the biggest no-brainer, because they remember old Ravnica, the Shocklands went all up to 30 bucks by the time that they were reprinted in Return to Ravnica. And so everyone just said, oh, this is a no-brainer, this is such a duh thing to invest in Shocklands. And I said, whoa, hold up. They're going to be played one of in most modern decks. I think that after Standard, they're going to crash. And then when they crash, then you start buying into them. So we still see Hallowed Fountain. We still see most of the Return to Ravnica ones particularly being very, very low. Lastly, with Shocklands and Fetchlands too, people forget that they're also in Fate Reforged, and they're also in Dragon's Maze for the Shocklands. And I believe there's 2 to 3 per box for Fate Reforged, which again is going to keep the prices down of Khans of Tarkir, just because you can get them. So say what do you get? 4 to 5 or 3 to 4? Someone let me know the numbers you get per box on Khans of Tarkir, because the rest of the set of Khans of Tarkir is worth absolute crap. And Rudy points that out too, that it's just there's nothing in the set besides Fetchlands. And the good news though is Fetchlands are rares, and so rares have a better ability to hold the value of a set than mythics do. But everything else in the set is terrible. I've started to see a little upkick in the value of a Khans of Tarkir. We see all of the Shocklands starting to go up. So again, I think now might be the time to start pulling the trigger, the $15 mark on these, if you want to kind of park your money for the long term. So anywho, so what I was talking about with the Fate Reforged is the value of a set is purely based upon the Fetchlands, not based upon anything else, and you get, 3 to 4 per box? So say a Khans of Tarkir is twice the value of a Fate Reforged. Fate Reforged would be a better investment, because if you can get 2 boxes of Fate Reforged, and for the price of 1 box of Khans of Tarkir, you're going to get the same amount of Fetchlands, which is just plain crazy, because people forget that Fetchlands exist in the Fate Reforged. And maybe it's only 1 to 2 per box. I can't remember. I thought it was 2 to 3. But you'd have to just do the data on that to see if it actually exists. So people forget about just Fate Reforged, that these have a little bit. What is that? A mythic slot basically. You get like an extra Khans of Tarkir, 1 or 2 per box for Fate Reforged, and so that can add like the value like a mythic adds to the set. Anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about with the Fetchlands. Hopefully we can bury this kind of discussion and kind of focus on the other things to the market money. Now I've gone 25 minutes on this subject. So what I really wanted to talk to is another video that Alpha Investments just put out with the crash of Conspiracy. And I just want to say, I told you so. And again, I kind of disagree with him saying that everyone's just going crazy about it and the entire, there's this mass sell-off. Conspiracy is still overinflated. It's still way overinflated. And let me show you why. So this has 22 cards in it, or 222 cards, 14 mythics, 50 rares. So it's kind of like a in between a large and a medium and a small set. Let's just look at Eldritch Moon. Eldritch Moon has 205 cards and has a value of 220. Conspiracy has 222 cards with a value of 237. This is a highly demanded set that everyone needs tons of cards out of. This is a set that's just for funsies. And that's really what it is. There's some legacy staples in it. There's some new cards that are kind of cool. I told you that Recruit of the Guard and these type of cards cannot hold value. We saw that with Council's Judgment. Council's Judgment is a heavily played card in Legacy. People love it in that format. There's a few other cards in that set. They're heavily played in Legacy. And they just went way down to the rares went down to the $5 mark. The mythics went down to under 10. And so history has to repeat itself. In fact, history has to double repeat itself because there's way more value and way more hype in this set. So it's going to happen. These are people like Rudy that are their own undoing. Let me repeat that. People, the speculators are their own worst enemy when it comes to sets, when it comes to opening sets. Because if they hype up their own set, that means more people are going to get into it, more competitors, and it has to decrease the value. When it's the vast majority of the demand of the set is speculators trying to speculate, and there is no pressure from people actually buying these cards, it is going to happen. It's going to be this madhouse, this race to sell off, and that's what we're seeing with Conspiracy. And it's just kind of actually amusing to me because it just shows you just how kind of hollow the speculation scene really is. Like when they try to create false demand. Just like we saw with like the comic book industry is the best example of this is comic books were such a great investment. We saw people like taking money out of their other investments, like even real estate, and investing in comic books. And the true demand of comic books was like there was a couple million people that actually wanted to buy comic books for the entertainment purposes, and then another couple million of people just speculating on that. And so it was false demand because speculators don't care about the cards. They're not ever going to play it. They're using it as an investment. And as soon as that dries up, like the true demand dries up, and they're holding on to a comic book that the speculators, or in this case, a Magic card they don't really care about, then they're going to sell it off and try to look for a different avenue to invest in their money. And I think we're going to see this with Conspiracy because the true demand of Legacy and Commander players is a lot smaller than like standard players and even kitchen table casual players. We've seen just the massive sell-off with all of these type of cards, and I still think it's going to continue to decrease because if a set is always worth it to open the boxes and eBay them, then someone like Rudy or someone like I know some other mass speculators, if they can make $100 or $90 off of opening a booster box and selling it on eBay, they will do that. There are people that are willing to work. Man, that just seems to me like the worst. Less than minimum wage to do so by the time you put in hours. But if I guess you got it down to a science to open booster boxes and hurry and flip them on eBay, if you can make $5-10 per booster box, then it's worth your time. And so these new sets, and with as many people in the industry as there is now, with the mass box openers, it's just going to kill the ability of a set to ever have more value in it than the $80-90 per booster box. Otherwise, someone's going to do it. So is there an opportunity to invest in these long term? Yes. But Conspiracy 1 is a good example with now finally, we're seeing Conspiracy 1 cards like Exploration actually go up in value. And I'm still waiting for Council's Judgment. That card refuses to go up. That was the card after they announced Eternal Masters that I thought, hey, this is the best place to park your money for Legacy. And that card just refuses to go up in value. So it just shows you how much supply is actually out there with this set. When we see, and then the foils are still insanely worth a lot. I think everyone is just going for the foils in this. So let's just switch to foil prices. Foil prices are still crazy expensive. $185 for Kaya, $95 for Berserk. And so people are just still chasing these foils, which is which is going to also continue to keep the price super, super low for this conspiracy Take the Crown set. And again, at my store, we drafted this all night. Like, as many drafts as we could do, we did with conspiracy. Now, I'm a tiny store, and we went through more product than we're used to going through. So I think that conspiracy was a hit all around, just because of how overhyped it was. I actually didn't enjoy it as much as Conspiracy 1. I thought Conspiracy 1 was a much better draft format than Conspiracy 2. I actually think you should mix the two, because there's some cool conspiracies. I was a little bit disappointed with the common conspiracies from Conspiracy. They just seem to be kind of awkward in a multiplayer format. But that's just me. And let me know in the comment section how you felt about Conspiracy 2. A huge fan of Conspiracy 1, the way it played. Of course, this has more value in it, so it's going to lead to more people opening it. So that's my take on Conspiracy 2. Vendors are speculators, are box openers, mass box openers are basically, they're going to kill their own market for themselves. So the more that go into the game, the less profitable it's going to be. And so that's why I think we need to kind of change our culture of investments and look at something where, at least the Rogue Deck Builder or the Market Monday people need to look at a venue or an avenue that isn't oversaturated with investors. And that's why I've changed my whole premise from investing in legacy and modern staples into casual cards. And that's why I still like penny stocks. And so I think that's where I'll kind of end on is, I was going to talk about conspiracy. If you go back to the regular conspiracy here, just the regular set's worth 237. Let's compare it to like Battle for Zendikar, 152. And yeah, that's even cons, 153. For cons, very similar mythics and rares in conspiracy with fetchlands in the mix of it. Yeah, conspiracy has to continue to go down. It's still oversaturated. So I still think that we will start to see the mythics settle down to under 15, maybe show and tell being the exception of that above, and the rares under 5 or 6, 5, 6. For every rare, and I think we're almost already there. Inquisition down to $6.50. So yeah, we'll still see price decrease. So lastly, I want to talk about some speculations I missed, and hopefully going forward, that for these other sets that have recently rotated, like Khans of Tarkir, we can actually hit these cards that are very, very low that see a ton of play in Commander and Kitchen Table. So I want to talk about the gods and just how crazy a lot of these gods have gone up in value, and they've just kind of snuck it. And that's when you see this sort of thing, you know that the speculators aren't in these type of cards if you don't see these big price increases and price decreases. So let's just look at like Thassa, for example. I think Thassa is the one that hasn't gone up. Yeah, which is funny because it's actually the most competitive card. So yeah, let's look at the Born of the God ones. Let's look at Karametra. Karametra was one that was absolutely a great example of why casual cards are such safe investment. If you invested in Constar or Theros booster box or Born of the Gods booster box, you haven't made any value since it's rotated. If you invest in Keranos, at its height of drafting it was $1.80. It is now up to $3.30 and continued to go up in value. And all of these gods have done similar things. If we just click on the Born of the Gods, you can see that they have a decent price increase every week. Like a 5-cent increase per week is pretty good. So we have Mogus. This pile of garbage. Who plays this card? Is this card even good anywhere, even in kitchen play? I drafted this card and ended up, had it in my main deck in draft and ended up cutting it halfway through the draft just because it was so bad. It just didn't seem to do what a black-red aggro deck wanted to do. But yeah, Mogus, I guess, is a bad example too of the gods. But most of them have increased quite substantially. Even from 4 to 5 is a decent little increase. And it seems to continue to do so. And we've seen a lot of these cards follow suit. Elspeth out of the Theros has gone up. A lot of the mythics, the trash mythics out of Theros, Born of the Gods, and Journey that only see play in the kind of kitchen table atmosphere have all basically outperformed all the modern cards of these sets. And all of, like, look at Brimaz, which I would consider a highly competitive card, has just completely plummeted from its standard play and leveled off, and it continues to go down. Whereas like Perforos, which actually Perforos does have some modern play, but has a ton of kitchen table play and is a incredibly overpowered card in Commander. I mean, I think it's on the the watch list of cards that they might want to ban out of Commander because it's just so insanely powerful has just gone way up, has had these $2 increases. So I think moving forward, that's the way to kind of look at cards, is to not ignore the casual players, to really, really target those cards that is always going to be favorites. So if you're a competitive player, I know that this is painful because it's painful for me to do too. It's the most painful thing is a spike, which I am. I consider myself a Johnny Spike. Maybe even a Spike Johnny. Like, I love to win. And when I create decks, it is to win, not just to, I don't know, flail around. I don't see the purpose of playing a game if you don't try to. I try to find different ways to win. So does that make me a Spike Johnny or a Johnny Spike? Because I love to brew, and I love to that the brewing process is by far the most fun process in Magic the Gathering. But I'm still looking to win. So I know that this may pain you to do so, but spend some time with those kitchen player and the commander players and see what their favorites are. See what every deck wants to put in it. I sell a ton of Clever Impersonators. That's a card we cannot keep in stock. Vorel of the Whole Clay from Dragon's Maze. I sell so many of those because they go into so many green-blue decks. And a lot of clone type abilities. The Cyclonic Rift is still a card that it keeps getting reprinted that I can't keep in stock. Those we at my local game store probably have more casual players than competitive players, and I am guilty of really trying to cater to the competitive crowd over the casual crowd because I just don't pay as much attention or as I should to these kitchen player people that love to collect and actually do spend as much money over the long term. You just don't see it in the big bursts like you do with the competitive players. So anyway, we'll do a whole video looking at cards from probably the Khans of Tarkir block that I think are better places to park the money for the both long and short term than the Fetchlands that have a huge volatility looming over their head with the possible reprints of, or not possible, the inevitable reprints of the Zendikar Fetchlands. Alright. Last but not least, this will have a video completely on its own, and it's going to get dirty, it's going to get messy, and I'm probably going to make a ton of enemies and piss a lot of people off. I don't care. These people need to step up, and they need to release a video, or they need to release at least a statement for their involvement with the Puca Trade brand. I have never been sponsored by Puca Trade. They wanted me to write one article for them, and I said, sure, I'd love to write an article, but they never even talked about compensation. And then I think when they figured out that I flame them pretty often, they pulled that. I was supposed to write one, I believe, for Shadows or Innistrad pre-release, and then they never got back to me with it, just probably because they saw some subsequent videos. I will never, ever, 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 ever sell out to a company that wants to bribe me. Let's just put that out there. If my sponsors right now decide to be something that I can't, stomach, or they do something that I will completely leave that brand. I am very loyal to Cool Stuff and to Gathering Magic because they have been so good to me in the past. And they have never tried to tell me I can't talk about a topic, tell me that, I don't know. And their brand image is a lot different than I would say a lot of my opinions. Gathering Magic is really known for having a lot of very, very diverse, and I think they are guilty of doing diversity for diversity's sake too. That's the direction they want to go in, and I'm probably one of the most outspoken people against that, and they've never, ever, 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 ever been anything but good to me. And so that's the type of people I want to stay loyal to. And so even if I was in a position where I was being paid by Puca Trade, if they pulled this crap, I would still call them out. And I'm hoping that my fellow YouTubers who have been sponsored, who have had a lot of expenses paid for them at certain tournaments and whatnot, by the Puca Trade brand, make a statement at least. And I'll do an entire video based upon this, but Puca Trade has basically come to the final straw with me. They raised a crap ton of money through their selling services, like their silver and gold, and they made a crap ton of money on their Indiegogo campaign, and they addressed absolutely none of the communities concerned and gave us this pile of crap that they call the second site or the future site of Puca Trade. So if you haven't checked out Puca Trade, it is almost unbearable to try and navigate. It is way too... if you ever tried to load this on a smartphone too many images load up. It loads up like background images like crazy. And nothing. They had no... The only cool thing that I like about Puca Trade's future site is the packaging. It will show you like packages. But in fact, that really wasn't a big plus because I already did that through a secondary service called Puka Power. Puka Power already found packages for me to send on my want list, and basically, I feel this is the death of Puca Trade. We have kind of a cool little relationship, I guess. Relationship is the bad term to use, between like how Zach and I use Puca Trade. We both use the Rogue Deck Builder account. That's our store. We use this for our store. We usually use Puca Trade to get cards for Commander players that we don't keep in stock. And so I've loved Puca Trade in the past, so I don't want this to be the biggest Debbie Downer because I'm really upset because this is a service I used and actually benefited from quite a bit. And I have, if you just go, let's see if I can go to my profile. Where's my profile? I can show you how much cards I've sent off. Did it just go down? Anyway, so let's back up. I guess the site is down at the moment. But you can see how much I've sent off. Hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. I think thousands of dollars of cards. Yeah, I've just sent off over, I think it was $3,000 of cards I've sent off and received in Puca Trade. And all of that's been legit. I haven't got anything, had a few referrals from the very, very beginning, but I think I've had under 10 referrals total for free points that I've received from Puca Trade. And so people like me have been the bread and butter, the backbone for the Puca Trade services by actually trading, and I've been wanting low demand cards and sending off high demand commons and uncommons is kind of how I've made my mark on the Puca Trade scene. And now I've had these 5,000 points forever. I can't get rid of them. This is horrible. No one wants to send me a card. I've got tons on my want list. I have over, I don't know, I think we have over $4,000 of cards, mostly commander type cards on our want list. And no one, since the future site has been updated, is wanted to send us cards, and it's kind of the same boat that I'm in. But anyway, back to the relationship, the kind of partnership I have with Zach is I find the packages and he sends them off. And so Zach was livid when they updated Puca Trade to this new one because it took him over an hour to send off packages just because of how hard it was to navigate between the sending. It's just god awful. This site is so gaudy. It's so hard to navigate. It's so hard to go in between transactions. It's just overly done with images. I wish I could go to the send card, but I think it's down. Yeah, the maintenance is down, so I can't even show you this. But it's so hard to find. It's just, instead of just text, it has images for everything. And the thing that really concerns me is instead of taking criticism from the constructive criticism from the community, they have just flamed the community and said that we're all basically don't know what we're talking about. And so this is a company that's telling its users basically to F off, that we don't know what's best. I use the service. Everyone else uses the service. So you go over to pucatrade.r/Reddit. You can see that everyone else is just like me and is upset. There is no flow going back and forth with the cards amount. There have been plenty of people saying that the amount of activity on Puca Trade is way down, and it just shows that they spent like over 40 grand on making the site worse. Like, one thing that I can say for the old Puca Trade, it was easy to navigate. It was very simple. It was clean. And back to the very start of the video, that's why I like the MTG Goldfish. Look how clean this site is. Very few images here and there. It's easy to load up on a site, but the columns are all nice. Nothing is fancy. It seems like that Puca Trade spent $40 to try to be fancy pantsy, and all it did was make the site much harder to navigate. Didn't solve any of the economic issues that I thought that the site was lacking. Didn't solve all of the bribery or the paying its employees in Puca points. Didn't solve mass amounts of legitimate problems that I think all of us had with the overall Puca Trade experience, and just made it worse. So I'm really sad. Rest in peace, Puca Trade. It was good while it lasted. Where I really am angry is I think that Puca Trade has killed any other site's ability to ever be a competitor too, just because it has taken all of the kind of the gas out of the community of really supporting a startup company that wants to create a trading service. So I really wish there was any alternatives to this. That's the one thing that Puca Trade had over its competitors, is it was just very easy to make trades, and the community was pretty much self-sustaining. It was very honest. I don't think there was a lot of scammers. We had a good way of getting rid of the scammers, and it just seems to me this can be impossible for another startup company to kind of duplicate what Puka Trade was able to achieve, and that is just very, very frustrating and sad to me, because it was like Puka Trade had a very, very easy ability to trade those dollar cards and under. You can't TCG player those. You can't eBay them. You end up losing money on most of those transactions. And it's just like TCG player has that, so you only have to do a $2 order. You lose money on a $2 order. I'm looking for alternatives, any other way that I can get rid of these commons and uncommons that I made a killing off of Puka Trade. And so far, I haven't been able to find a solution. So if anyone has found a solution to that, let me know in the comment section. The reason why I talk about that is we're a game store, so I buy bulk. And we get so many cards like, for example, Become Immense, Thought Scour, cards like that I've made a killing off of in the past. Young Pyromancers, that's another card I've just traded off a ton of them, just because we seem to get in more in from the kitchen table player people. That there's always these like swings in Magic. You get a person get into Magic and then 2 years later get out of Magic, and that's where your local game stores act kind of like a pawn shop. We can get these bulk prices for nothing. Like I buy bulk at 4 per 1,000, so $4 for 1,000 cards, and then you'll inevitably find Young Pyromancers in their bulk, because the kitchen players are not very able to identify expensive cards, and so that's where you'll find the Become Immenses and the Gitaxian Probes and the Young Pyromancers for people that played during those eras. And that's where I've been able to make a killing off the bulk, is then finding a service like Puka Trade to unload them for at least commander staples or commander cards that my local play group wants, that then I can sell to them for full value. So I'm able to turn a Young Pyromancer at just the cost of a stamp into a full value card. So anyway, I'm hoping in the future there will be some sort of service that duplicates this. Puka Trade refuses. In fact, they've called people toxic, or what was the term they used for the subreddit? I'll have to find that for you. But he tweeted that basically the complaints coming from the subreddit he can just completely ignore, because Reddit is just a cesspool. And so that's how they view us as the community. They've called me out too. I found some private messages back and forth that people have shared with me about how Puka Trade have felt about my channel, how I know nothing, etc., etc. So I'm just going to quit using the service. I think that everyone else is probably needs to get out of the Puka points. I think I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, and just, this 5,000 points here is just going to have to rot. And as I have tons of cards on my want list, and nothing is happening. Anyway, hope this has been educational. I'll try to do a follow-up video more in detail with it. But this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.